Welcome to the Weekly Business Hour, where each week we give you the best in business news that you can use, tips and information on how you can make your business more profitable, and hear from a special business guest who will share their own experiences in running their business. Our guest this week is David Foy of Internet Mobile Solutions. I am your host, Rick Schissler, Silver Fox Advisor, who personally has 40 plus years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox Advisor, here in sort of a beautiful day in downtown Conroe. We have a great show lined up for you today. We'll start with a few tips, a little bit of news, and then we're going to have a visit with David Foy with Internet Mobile Solutions. So David's in the studio already, and I know he's anxious to talk with us. Got a very interesting business career and also an interesting business that he's in now. So, but before we get to that, as usual, let's have a few business tips and ideas. I'm going to start off, though, with a bit of news I read over the weekend that I think is interesting. And the idea is that as the economy improves, or so we're told, but we know in the local area, in the greater Houston area and Montgomery County, we're seeing a great economy start to develop, that the availability of money. Now, I don't know if you use loans in your business or what kind of source of funds you have. If you're a startup, we talked about that most recently in the last week or two, about sources of funds and so on and so forth. But one of the things that's happening in the general money market, if you will, is there's a loosening happening. And I read a news item that I thought was interesting. I don't know if it applies to you, but it's another indication to me that money is becoming more available, particularly to small business, which has been a sore point to me and a lot of businesses around the country over the last 3 or 4 years. In the Wall Street Journal on January 22nd, there was an article that the Small Business Administration is committing more cash to its SBIC program. In fact, 25% more cash. They're going from a $3 billion allowance to $4 billion. Now, the SBIC program is one that focuses on private investment or private equity. Not a lot of business in particular use that kind of funding, but it's available that you can borrow, if you will, or take a direct investment from a private investor. And the Small Business Administration supports this. And what is really interesting about this article, they have numerous different small business investment groups, venture capitalists, if you will, or investment companies that have been certified and licensed by them to provide this kind of investment. But they're moving into a new area, which I think is really interesting. They're moving into crowdfunding. And I don't know if you've heard about crowdfunding, but it's out there. It's an internet function, really, where private individuals get together and invest $100, $500, $50. As a crowd, it adds up, and people have been known to go on the internet and borrow several $100,000. In fact, I read not long ago somebody borrowed over $1 million. But apparently the SBA is looking at providing support even for crowdfunding, which means that this money could become readily available to people that are looking for these type of funds. So I thought that was an interesting news item, and I wanted to share it with you. Also would like to give you a little bit of tip, another article I read, which I thought was very interesting and something that is often forgotten. I run across this myself on a number of occasions. I've run across this with clients that I've worked with. And this was an article I picked up in a financing and section of the Wall Street Journal by Amy Schissler. And it was an article that the title was "The Perils of Borrowing Too Much Too Soon." Now think about that with me for just a few moments. Borrowing too much too soon. All of us that have started businesses, like myself, those that are out there today thinking about starting a business, or those who have businesses they did start, obtaining money, borrowing money, finding money to start the business, to sustain the business, to grow the business is one of the major challenges we have. And we discussed last week, there's a lot of choices. But oftentimes you'll find as people put their business plans together, or they update them in an effort to grow the business, take it to the next level, to acquire a competing business, they oftentimes want to borrow more than they really need. And this article points out that that can be very dangerous, and I happen to agree wholeheartedly. And it gave an interesting example. It was kind of an extreme, but it gave an example of two entrepreneurs. One that were starting new businesses. One needed $500,000 to start his business and to build it to the future. The other one only needed $10,000, and they picked it up off their credit card, and it only was for the initial hard cost of starting the business. Now, what happens? Well, as you go down the road, the one who borrowed $500,000 or got a $500,000 investment or a combination of some kind of money sourcing has got a much heavier burden to bear. They've got to cash flow sooner. They've got to pay people back. The guy that had the $10,000, in this case, their example, picked it up off a credit card. You can see the difference. Their burden on paying back the money is a lot less. Now, that doesn't mean that their business won't be just as big, just as successful, say 3 to 5 years down the road. This is an extreme example, but it happens all the time. People get access to money. They take too much money too quick, forgetting about the burden it's going to create. And the business has that burden. It has to meet repayment of that money one way or another. So it's important that when you have your vision, if you will, for your business, when you're looking at your business plan, that you weigh the pros and cons on how much money you actually need to get started in a bare bones way, in a way that will get you started. It's kind of like you used to see all the time. People would go out and rent an expensive office space, go out and get expensive furniture, buy a lot of computer equipment, all this first class. And it really wasn't necessary for that particular kind of business because they didn't necessarily have clients come in the door all day long. And yet they had to carry that burden from day one. Sometimes it makes it nearly impossible. Sometimes it can cause the business to be a big part of the failure of that business because you're carrying too much burden too early in the life of that business. So it's important. Another example they gave, which I think is great for people who are going to manufacture a product, because that's one thing I think we lack in this country, or that we've lost a little bit of our ability, and that's develop great products. We do a lot of intangibles these days. We do a lot of software. We've got a lot of great services out there. But, when you develop a great product, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to manufacture that product yourself. Because as we all know, to set up any kind of manufacturing facility, whether it be a simple machine shop or any kind of production line, that's expensive. Even if you go out and shop for used equipment and you just sort of, use baling wire and sort of put it all together and make it happen, that's a huge investment. Why not try to third party it out? There's a lot of third parties out there. Boy, we know there's a lot of machine shops, but there's a lot of people out there that'd be more than willing to build your product. Yes, you give up some margin when that happens, but think about reducing the burden on starting the business. Once you've got the business started, once you've got your product in the marketplace and people are buying your product and you know you're going to be successful with it and your vision continues to look down the road and see the opportunities and you see where you're going, then you can talk about manufacturing yourself. That, I think, is a mistake that a lot of businesses make. They try to go out and make that capital investment to manufacture their own product, and I think we've got to be careful from that. So my point in conclusion is the faster you can find your equilibrium of the business, the less time you'll spend in the money hunt, and the faster you'll be able to take your business to the next level. And what slows you down, or one of the things that can slow you down, is the fact that you've got a tremendous debt burden or an equity burden, or you've got, this kind of thing around, almost like a noose around your neck. It's just tugging at you every day and slowing you down. The last tip I'd like to talk about today is from what I call my cowboy ethics. It's 10 principles to live by, and I talk about these from time to time, but we haven't mentioned this one before. And this one is know where to draw the line. Know where to draw the line. Now think about where that might be applicable in your business. I personally believe it works in every area because we have to sometimes make hard decisions on where to draw the line. It could be with an employee, could be with bad behavior. It could be borrowing money like we just talked about. There's a secret to knowing where to draw the line. It could be with a client, a customer that's pushing for more than you really need to give up or you can't afford to give up. But knowing where to draw the line is a really important trait or characteristic to develop. And ethically, it's a very important thing because ethically, you've got to communicate when you're drawing the line. The worst thing you can do is just pop up and say, no more, no way, no how. You've got to communicate with people, whether they be clients, employees, suppliers, your banker. You've got to tell them ahead of time. You've got to do it right. You've got to say, look, we're getting close to where won't work for us, won't work for me. You got to communicate to your family as well to draw the line as we talk about in our work-life balance. So I think this is a great cowboy ethic to live by. Know where to draw the line so that you don't get yourself caught. You pop up, you look like a crazy man trying to say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And you run out of the room screaming and shouting. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my tips and news for this week. I hope you'll stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment to have a nice visit with David Foy.
Conroe Live is a nonprofit entity whose purpose is for the enhancement of the arts, entertainment, and historical values in historic downtown Conroe. Recent programs include centennial celebrations for several buildings reconstructed after the Great Fire of 1911, the upcoming Historicade celebrating the history of downtown area, an art bench program consisting of 13 art benches depicting history, Chalk Up Conroe, a program benefiting cancer programs using sidewalk chalk, a tree planting program along the railroad tracks along the historical areas in the downtown, and generation of approximately $250,000 for the Owen Theater for improvements. Future projects include downtown historical markers, a pedestrian mall on Simonton Street, walking history programs, and more. For information, visit their website at www.conroelivinc.org.
Tune in at 3 o'clock every Wednesday for Aperture and Shutter Speed with me, Tom Moore of TR Moore Photos.
And me, Dick.
If you are an amateur or expert, or if you haven't ever picked up an SLR camera before, Aperture and Shutter Speed is a show for anyone who loves photography and film.
Join the conversation with us by calling in or emailing us your questions. If you want to know what's coming up on Aperture and Shutter Speed, just look up our show page on irlonestar.com or look us up on Facebook.
Join us every Wednesday at 3 p.m. for Aperture and Shutter Speed, and remember,
take your lens cap off.
Ladies and gentlemen, back with Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor. And as I mentioned before the break, we're here in the studio with David Foy of Internet Mobile Solutions. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate you having me here today.
Well, I'm excited about your appearance for an interesting reason. When I went through your resume, you became my everyman. You've been there, done it, which is one of the things I always have fun thinking back on my career of being an entrepreneur and working in different areas. But you've been everywhere and you've done it all.
I was never afraid to say yes and try something new.
Well, tell us a little bit about Internet Mobile Solutions. What is that about?
Internet Mobile Solutions is what we find is a great venture. It's a business that is a community service in its own. Our passion is to help small business and entrepreneurs be successful. And as you talked about with my resume, all the different ventures that I've tried, and I failed for different reasons. Some of them were underfunding, but oftentimes, as I look back and I was reflecting about what made me fail, it was my inability to understand marketing. So putting into play a marketing firm and being that person that can step in and help a business owner understand the marketing, implement the products for them, and take that liability off of them saves them time and money.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up marketing, which, as you and I discussed prior to the show, is an area of my interest, an area that I work in my career. I've worked in it a number of times, and every business needs marketing. And a lot of times I've found the entrepreneurs, particularly doing advising and consulting I do now, they don't have the skill set.
Well, I often find that entrepreneurs especially are very visionary individuals. And one of the things, I do a lot of reading, And one of the things that I have read about numerous times is customer first in all situations. I think it's important for our business partners to know customers first in your planning is important.
Well, that's a good point too. And I as I get older or wiser or whatever it is, in fact, I was looking through that this weekend, is understanding the customer even more. And you have to understand, I grew up in a customer business. We had thousands of customers, and then I've had businesses where I've had a handful when I was a professional. But it's just really understanding that customer, and everything we do to serve them is so critical.
And today's market, the customer base is changing. Today's customer is much more mobile. If I have a little catchphrase, if your business is not on the internet, you're likely to not be existing. And if it's not mobile, you're likely to not be found.
Well, and I think you make a great point. And I work with a lot of older businesses as well. And it tends to be that I've been in business, say, the example, 10, 20, 30 years even. And I don't need an internet presence at all, or even a website. Believe it or not, I actually have one or two businesses that don't believe in websites. I mean, they sell storefront retail. They don't believe that they've been there forever. They've got a customer base. They're happy. But I try to encourage them because so many people, if nothing else, it's become our yellow pages, right?
Well, it has. In fact, the internet, if they don't have a website, somebody else does. And somebody else is going to attract them through some kind of proactive marketing that we would implement. And once that person is taken away and exposed to something else and then kept up with, and that relationship is established through other marketing, then that customer ultimately is lost. And the word of mouth is more powerful in the social medias than it is on the street.
And the other thing I find that people miss, David, is particularly in vibrant areas like where you and I are blessed to be in Montgomery County, where you have lots of folks moving into the community, is the fact is our customer base, our potential customers or prospects, is ever changing. And we've got to have a way to reach those people if we want people to find out about our business.
That is so true. And that's why I say, if you don't have an internet presence, your business is likely to not exist. And if you're not mobile, you're likely to not be found, because most of those people that are moving into the Conroe area are a younger generation, and they're much more mobile in their searching. 70% of all consumers today are mobile, and yet less than 10% of the businesses are mobile friendly.
Well, let's talk about mobile for a minute. You've used that word over and over. I think I get it, but explain to people what mobile means.
Well, mobile is all of your phones, your smartphones, and your tablets. So the consumer base statistically is changing. The idea of an old tower sitting under your desk that you have to kick every time you sit down, that's gone away. People are now much more laptop and mobile. So when they're out and about, in an instant, if they have a question, they reach for their phone and they Google it on their phone. Well, if your business is not prominently listed in Google, Yahoo, Bing, and all the search engines that they would see organically, then they're going to choose somebody that is.
Well, and the thing I've learned, a couple things I've learned, is mobile is different. Somebody had to explain this to me a while back, but when I do an advertising or a website or whatever, that I'm going to be on the web now, okay? I've got a presence. But to present that same image, if you will, that same information on a mobile device is different.
Yes.
Because of screen size and whatever.
Yes, the formatting is different. In fact, a proper mobile site, it comes up with a headline, a logo, and then the tabs. So the mobile user does not really care to spend the hours searching as they would at home on a computer. On a computer, you have your coffee there, you've got your feet up, you're sitting in your fuzzy slippers and pajamas, and you start looking at rubber plants. And next thing you know, that takes you off to tires, and you're looking at Ferraris by the time you're done with it. But a mobile user knows what they want to know. They've identified their search topic, and they want the most expedient result to that local. The mobile consumer is a much more local consumer, and that is where mobile builds the local community businesses.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. I've got at this point tell a quick story though, because to me it exemplified the power of mobile. My parents live in a home and they have an electric gate, and one day that gate just wouldn't work. And one of my sons was there, and he had a smartphone, iPhone, I'm not sure of which brand, but it was a smartphone. He's got a mechanical mind. He had never dealt with their gate before, but he punched in the information, the brand name and whatnot that was there inside the box, and the next thing you know, he fixed their gate for him. And I was blown away by that, the fact that somebody could just be, he's not a serviceman. That's not what he does. He's a chief financial officer, CEO, and bam, right there. Right on, didn't have to go anywhere, didn't go inside and use my parents' computer, right there on his mobile. And that's what really hit me about mobile. That's when mobile became real to me.
Rick, that's a great story. And there's so many variances of mobile power through social media marketing. The mobile word is so viral. You hear this term viral. Word of mouth down the sidewalk goes viral in a church or in a card club, but viral globally with YouTube video and social media marketing, it's a whole different world.
Now, what does your company exactly do for people?
The first thing we do is we identify who they are today and how we can help them to a better tomorrow. Secondly, we identify what their desire for growth is. It doesn't matter our products until people don't care to know how much we know until they know how much we care. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So we have to figure out where they are today, just like a GPS. Let's figure out where you are today and how to get you to where you want to be. And by identifying that, then we can implement our whole full line of products.
So basically you're providing marketing assistance or direction, but using primarily mobile products.
Marketing consultation and implementation of everything from a domain name to a website, mobile website, search engine optimization, pay-per-click, pay for performance, organic listing. We do it all.
And it's sort of an a la carte type thing, I would assume?
Well, we started out a la carte, and we realized that piecemealing, based on what the owner of the business might have known or heard, was simply not really the most comprehensive, true solution. And so Internet Mobile Solutions is, let's create the solution. It may be more of this and less of that, but that's our responsibility of knowing what that is. We're like marketing doctors. Let's identify it and let's figure out what that fix really is to help you get to the better tomorrow that you want to reach.
So what I'm hearing is the solution for each business is individual. It's unique.
Absolutely. No two businesses are the same. No two individuals are the same. And that's very important to understand. That is so true.
So you do spend quite a bit of time up front, if you will, learning the business and learning where the marketing challenges are.
Yes, we have to. Otherwise, we're just peddling a product. And in marketing, that's where most people have gone wrong. Somebody designed a website 10 years ago. Somebody came along and said, oh, but you need a Facebook page. Oh, but the new next thing is you need Twitter. Or are you on LinkedIn? LinkedIn's where it's at. Well, if all of those implementations are done by different people and they're hosted by different people and they're not interlinked, then they're not functioning as one. It's like piecing together a Cadillac. I got a 58, 59, 60, 61 Cadillac.
And you try to put it together, and what do you have?
You've got a lot of content that we can build you a new solution with.
Sounds like the Batmobile to me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break now. And when we get back, we're going to talk to David. Like I said, he's an everyman in business. He's done a lot of different things, and talk to him about how he approaches different challenges in his business. Stick with us, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Hello, this is Dennis Nelson, inviting you to come with me through the doorway of imagination and into the theater of the mind. The Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour presents a play every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Lone Star Internet Radio. Be it drama or comedy, thriller or love story, every exciting episode is carefully chosen straight from the golden age of radio and performed live by talented actors, musicians, and sound effects crew. Every sound you hear will be 100% live and homemade. Anything can happen. So join us, please, every Saturday night at 7 p.m. for the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour, right here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
The Conroe YMCA's benchmark adaptive programming for kids and adults is Leap of Faith. Leap of Faith is an equine-assisted therapy program serving children and adults with adaptive needs. The riders in our Leap of Faith program are working to address and manage specific aspects of their lives impacted by illness, injury, or disability. The Leap of Faith program has experience working with riders who are living with attention deficit or other hyperactivity disorders, hearing impairments, visual impairments, developmental delays or disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, head traumas, brain injuries, and paralysis. Our program uses horseback riding to develop self-confidence and self-esteem, to increase upper and lower body strength, assist in respiratory issues, and establish a trusting relationship between the rider and their horse. Not only do these activities aid in the physical and mental development of the rider, but they also foster self-reliance and independence. For more information regarding our program, to become a rider, or to volunteer with a great group of people, please call our Welcome Center at 936-441-9622 or visit our website at www.ymcahouston.org/Conroe.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this week's Weekly Business Hour. In the studio, we've been visiting with David Foy of Internet Mobile Solutions. Been quite interesting to me, and I hope to you as well. David, let's back up a little bit. How did you first become interested in business in general?
Oh, when I first came to the United States in 1975, I had lived overseas, and I got a paper route. I worked for the Houston Chronicle, and then after that, I started doing lawn care just to make some money. I guess I was addicted to having a little cash and independence. So I started working, and I've worked ever since I was 15 years old. I've always had a job or two or three.
Well, you're definitely, as someone told me a couple of years ago, and I've kind of adopted it, they said, well, you're a serial entrepreneur. And I said, what does that mean? Well, you've had multiple businesses you've started. Well, you've had a lot more businesses than I have, so you're definitely in the group, serial entrepreneur.
I'll accept that with pride.
Well, it's an interesting tag. It took me a while to get used to it. The serial part sort of threw me, but you started these businesses. Obviously, your experiences have been wide and varied. Share with the audience, if you will, some of the more important things you've learned as you've worked your way through different businesses.
The first thing is to be a visionary. Like the book I'm reading right now, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. It's a great book. It gives you so much insight as to the potential of yourself and bringing self-worth. Oftentimes people are trapped in their socioeconomic situation by a fear of taking on a challenge and becoming more. One of my fears, one of my favorite little acronyms, fabricated expectations about reality. It hasn't ever happened, but that fear keeps them in a paralysis mode, and they don't act upon their dreams. They don't ever achieve or realize those dreams out of the fear.
Well, that's interesting. What other things have you learned being a business person extraordinaire?
Customer service culture of giving, culture of integrity towards customers, that without a customer, you don't have a business. And what has brought me around to the service and the marketing is that I'm very passionate about entrepreneurs becoming successful. That Main Street is America. Main Street employs America. And I want every person who has ever taken on that responsibility to be successful.
Well, let me ask you this, and you sort of generalized and said, well, I failed in this business, so I moved to the next one. I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure you were successful in the paper route business and the lawn mowing business, and but what in general would you attribute your business success to? Excuse me.
I would have to say that surrounding myself with some very supportive people. Obviously, I came from a supportive family. I have a supportive wife. I have a great business partner. I've worked with many different people that were positive minded. I read positive in, positive out. I believe in my own visions. I believe that anything I visualize can be a reality, and that it's just a matter of bringing the right people to the table to make it public.
Well, let me ask you this. You touched on something, and I think you actually had it in some of your biographical material, that you have a partner. So there are two of you in the business.
Well, Dino Patain is my partner, and Dino and I started this business. He has a phenomenal 20-plus year background as a business analyst. So everything I know is on the marketing sales side. It really comes from with sales background, but he really has all the technical background that has made our marriage in this business work very well.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I always am interested in partnerships, people working together. I think I mentioned to you we've had some husband and wives on here. We had a son that works with his dad. I mean, those are family partnerships, if you will. You're in a partnership. What are some of the challenges of being in a partnership with someone to make a business successful?
I've been in partnerships before that did not work. I think personality and respect, appreciation for each other's talents, not understanding where those lines, like you said in your tips, understanding where to draw the line, and respecting that each person has their own ability to contribute and to bring the strength of each other out without ever focusing on anything trivial. Triviality does not breed success.
Well, and I think that's a wonderful point. And I think the synergy that partners have, in other words, each brings something unique to the table. And you mentioned respect, and each respects that the other does have something unique, that together they can accomplish something that separately they're just not going to accomplish.
Yes, and I also believe there's divine blessings of finding that person, and we knew when Dino and I met. We met under a whole different situation. I was in the insurance game. He came to me looking for a job as an agent, and immediately, I would say within the first week, I looked at him square in the eyes and I said, Dino Patain, you are one person that I would absolutely go into business with.
Well, that's interesting. Now, what caused that?
It was just everything about him was that right blend, mix, full personality, devotion. Everything about him, I knew that was the right person for a partnership.
That's interesting, almost like a sixth sense.
Yes.
That's great.
Well, it's like meeting your wife, your spouse. You may date many people and you may have false illusions of love, but when you meet that one person, you're blessed to have that one person, and you just know from then it's the right person.
Well, amen to that. There's a lot of truth in that. Well, let me ask you this: when you in your business experience come on a challenge, challenged by a client or whatnot, how do you generally go about meeting those challenges, those difficult situations?
I take time to reflect and look at things from different angles. I like to figure out what that challenge was. It my fault, Was it something that I could have done better? What is the customer's perspective that they're bringing this challenge to me? And there are many situations over the last year and a half that we've encountered that have been situations that were really out of our control, but it's our integrity that has to pay the price to make sure that we deliver. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely it does. And I think that's one of the more difficult things that young businesses have, because it's not something you can sit down and plan. I mean, it's experience that comes to the front and says, how do I handle a challenge? And of course, they can come in many forms. They could be financial, they could be customer, suppliers, but some of the best stories I've read in business are about how great business people handle challenges.
I know that there's always a solution. There's an opportunity for growth. There's a lesson to be learned, and it's always about moving forward. You can't change the past. So how do we make today a better place for today and going forward?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's kind of get down and get specific on challenges. Internet mobile solutions. What's the biggest challenge to that business today?
I think that there's situations where we have a lot of potential. We have a full array of products. And it's the same thing as anybody else. It's bringing the right customer to understanding the full value of the return on investment. That in advertising can be a cost. Marketing is more of an investment, as from my perspective, and that having a marketing firm is as important to me, in my perception. A marketing firm is as important as a lawyer, an attorney, or a doctor. And most business owners who are busy, and they're so busy to be able to understand the value that a marketing firm, in fact, you can employ us as a marketing firm for less than you can hire an employee. And we're working 24/7 delivering so many angles of marketing that most business owners don't even know exist. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because I've looked at your materials, and you and I even talked a little bit before the show, and most business people, and I'll put myself to some extent in that group. I try to stay up with things, but there is constant change out there, particularly in the social media, internet world. And if in some businesses, I believe the internet, and that is much more important than others. It's like a scale, but it's important to every business. Some part of it is very important to every business, and so it's hard. Let me ask you this. Say I'm an individual and I'm looking at going in business for myself. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start something. I've got an idea about a product or a service. What would be your advice as far as putting together a marketing plan for my business? I mean, I'm just new to this. I've always worked for someone else, but I'm going to start. What's your basic advice to me?
You know, Rick, I appreciate that question. It's a great question, and it goes back to, your tip of the day. Are you borrowing too much money or too soon? Oftentimes, a lot of people, when they're bringing an idea to the table, they really are not sure how the marketing's going to go. And in that first founding, they don't establish enough budget to a marketing. When they establish a budget to the marketing, that marketing will take on a personality of its own that will guide them to the solution that they desire to reach. Again, no business is the same as any other. So are they looking for a social, quick response, a viral response? Are they looking for a slow brick and mortar growth? Are they looking for permanent? There's so many different angles that I don't know there's a simple solution to your question. It's a great question.
Well, and it's the thing that always bothers me as a Silver Fox advisor is that I find people, and the listeners, the regular listeners to this show know this. It bothers me that people don't do any kind of real planning. And a plan could be a single sheet of paper, but gosh, sit down and take your vision and reduce it to writing so you can look at it, and hopefully you'll have others look at it that can provide you with some advice. But the marketing plan, is typically nothing more than what I'll call an advertising plan. I'm going to go buy some advertising over here, and that's how I'm going to start. Or buy a sign for my business. That's or some cards or some flyers, and that always just hurts me so much to see that.
A website design, it falls into that category. We have had some of the greatest websites created over the last decade with Flash. Flash came and went. If your website is Flash, you need to call us at Internet Mobile Solutions. Okay? Because Flash does not work on mobile devices. Apple and Verizon and Google, they've all done away with Flash. So if you've got great Flash on your website, it's time to give us a call. But a beautiful website design without any traffic, without any marketing driving the people to that website is no different than the most beautiful electronic billboard out in the woods, and nobody's seeing it.
Well, and I think you lead me into a point that I try to make to people, and that's websites. Websites are just like any kind of marketing, any kind of advertising. They've got to be refreshed. They've got to be renewed. And you've got to find people, as your example of Flash, know what they're doing. That know that kind of information and can put you into something that will work.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't do that. They put that site up and you look down there and the bottom copyright 2008,
1993.
2005. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I'll be frank with you. When I personally, as a consumer, whether it's business to business or as a personal consumer, go to a site and I see that on the bottom of a website, I keep moving. You know, I have to. I realize that business is stuck back when, and somehow that'll affect my transaction if I commit to one.
Back in the last decade of the last century.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting where people take us on all that kind of stuff, and they pay no attention to it.
It's very important. It's extremely important. And you know, like a soldier, a mother, a business owner assumes all the responsibility and all the accountability, and we take on that equal responsibility. Our job is to drive the traffic to you. Your job is to take care of them, make them happy, and bring them back.
Well, that's well said. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been visiting with David Foy here on the Weekly Business Hour. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with you to talk a little bit with David about work-life balance and some of those other challenges of being an entrepreneur in today's world. Please stay with us.
Do you ever wonder what's going on in the business community? Are you looking for ways to get plugged in? Cassandra Roshan here, Director of Membership Development with the Greater Conroe, Lake Conroe Area Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to invite you to tune in to Chamber Chat. Tune in the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. so you will be in the know for all Chamber happenings for the month. Each month, the Chamber offers 2 free lunch and learn sessions, a networking breakfast, business after hours, membership luncheon, as well as many other special events throughout the year. I will give you a rundown of all programs and events for the month, as well as interview our speakers and hosts of these events. So grab a cup of coffee and tune in to Chamber Chat the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Chat with you then.
Hi, I'm Joyce with the Corner Pub in downtown Conroe. We're located at the corner of Simonton and North Main, just across the street from the courthouse. The week starts off Monday with open mic hosted by Alan, and Tuesday nights open mic hosted by Jeremy Bankhead. And on Thursday evening, McFarland Jams. There's nightly drink specials available every night, all night. And don't forget, live entertainment every weekend. To see a full list of events, visit our website at thecornerpubinconroe.com. So come join us at the Corner Pub, where the deli is open late.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Schissler, Silver Fox Advisor, back here in the studio for our final segment of the Weekly Business Hour. We've been visiting with David Foy, of Internet Marketing Solutions, and now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little more personal, if you will, with David about something I always like to touch on with our visitors, and that's work-life balance. Well, David, I think you have some definite ideas about that. Please share them with us.
The first thing is that it's highly important. It's hard to do. It's almost impossible the more entrepreneurial you are. And I get it. I'm very blessed to be missed by a lot of people on a regular basis.
Well, one of the things I think, and I try to advise people, it's you and I touched very briefly in the last segment about planning. We're talking about marketing planning, but I almost think this part of it needs to be planned, and this plan needs to be between you and those people, and you and yourself, because when you start a business, you can't expect. I mean, if you're honest with yourself, typically you're going to have to invest a lot of time and talent to get started. But you've got to be on a path that over 2, 3, 4 years that you begin to have opportunities to ease back a little bit. You've got to build your business to a point that it allows you some time for yourself, time for your family, or whatever the situation is. And so many people, I find, they just dive headlong into it and really have never thought or never, in the case of a family, they didn't sit down with their significant other and say, look, if we do this, this is a we, this is not just me, and for the first year, I'm going to be X of this, and really have a discussion, an honest discussion, because I believe some significant others, that kind of stuff doesn't really work, and they become very concerned, but there's never been a upfront conversation. It's after the fact. What's your experience?
I think you're absolutely correct, Rick. And I am just, I have a wonderful, supportive wife who absolutely understands me, that my brain is going 24/7. I think that in defense of the fully devoted entrepreneur is that you can't teach what you don't know. And when you get into a new business and all those challenges, experience comes with time. And you have to experience the positives and the negatives so that you can know how to delegate and how to turn that over. I think that one of the biggest fears of a true entrepreneur who's out there is turning over or delegating to somebody who is incompetent, without any situation or ability to manage them. And that's the balance there. So yes, it takes family time. It takes, if the people know you well and you're not just jumping into something completely out of the blue, I think that's that's true. I think spouse and family and upbringing are very important, and I just don't know how to change that. I'm very blessed to have the support team that I do.
Well, I would suggest that perhaps you've communicated well, because again, I think if you can, communicating before you even go into the venture, or before, the fact that I'm a type A personality, say, well, I'm just going to work all the time and all, I don't think that's really fair. I think you've got to, your significant other or family or whatever it is, or yourself. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've met entrepreneurs that have gained 20, 30 pounds. They used to work out, or they used to be involved in some type of outdoor activities, and they throw it all over to the side. And I guess what bothers me is there's no plan to work back towards getting into sync with those parts of your life. It's just work, head down, and people love to hear me say work in your business, on your business, huge difference.
Yes.
And I think you've got to work towards those kind of things in everything you do, because if you don't have a plan, which exit strategies happen to be something I love, and that's when you, of course, sell or transfer the business, but also exit strategies as far as changing your position in the company, which is what you were touching on.
Yes. You must elevate yourself through the development of others, and otherwise you don't elevate. So you have to do the job to teach the job, and you have to motivate and train others and give them the tools and share that experience to be able to get them to be able to assume that responsibility, and then you can elevate your balance, right? But yeah, exit strategies are very important, and I think goal setting. If there's one thing that I find with people who are balancing between successful and not, is that they have not truly written out their short-term goals, their medium goals, their long-term goals, all the way to the exit strategy. But goal setting and knowing what they're working for and having that written out. What are my family goals? What are my business goals? What are my dream goals, my bucket list goals? Whatever it is, I have goals, and I'm willing to share those with anybody.
Well, I 100% agree with you, because unfortunately I end up coming in and advising people or consulting with them when they've not done a lot of that. And I say, unfortunately, I'm glad they need my help. I love working with them, but still, I wish when they began their path in their business that they had thought through and gotten some agreement from the other people in their lives that, hey, I'm going to have to do this, or I'll do this, or, a lot of times they talk about the money part, but they don't talk about the time part and what's going to happen with that. And let's talk about your business particularly. I mean, you're building a marketing plan, if you will, for a company. I'm being very general. And how difficult is it once you put these pieces together? Because you do a lot of upfront work based on what I've looked at your material, and to sit down with someone perhaps who's not done any of this planning, like we're talking about different kinds of plans or goals. How difficult is it for you to communicate and get them on board?
I don't think it's that hard. We have gone through tremendous measures to make sure that we have all of the moving parts and the vertical alignment of all the moving parts. So if somebody does not write about themselves well, we have professional content writers that can build the search engine optimization on page, off page, implement all of the marketing, pay-per-click or SEO, the organic listing, Google Places, all of the moving parts. But they're very integral, and they have to come together. So having a marketing firm manage all of that is very helpful. It's like having a primary care doctor give you orchestrate your specialist as well, and have some central bank of knowledge. So having one marketing firm like Internet Mobile Solutions is very important to a successful marketing campaign.
Well, and I 100% agree with you. And client buy-in, so to speak. In other words, all of a sudden, I don't like to plan, but you're going to make me plan if I buy into your service.
Yes.
That's interesting. Let me ask you, you had mentioned that you have a couple ideas that you would like to share with us. Would you do that at this time?
Sure. My partner and I are working on a phenomenal opportunity that small businesses, local businesses, it's called Clip and Zip. And you can go to clipandZip.com right now, and without having to register, share your private information, you can go ahead and download any grocery store coupons at any time, and you print them out. Well, we're bringing Clip and Zip local to the area where small businesses will be able to advertise and have we're bringing all of that. So we're bringing the marketing, but we're adding additional tools that will be part of a package purchase. So that, and then we also have merchant processing, 1% merchant processing, where people are now business owners, they're having to pay 4 and 5% just to be able to accept a credit card. So in addition to the 8.5% that they're having to collect for taxes, they're actually paying or losing 4 and 5% of the sale to merchant processing. If we can save 4% or 3% for every purchase, that's huge to a business owner. And that's part of our packaging that we're bringing out.
Now, this will be part of your marketing plan?
Well, we're going to package it as for customers that work with Internet Mobile Solutions. We're going to have this in the portfolio, in the packaging. And yes, we want to offer this to every local business owner, 1% merchant processing.
So you're going to add that to the services you already provide?
Yes. So when you're talking about marketing strategies and marketing plans, we're constantly implementing a new level of marketing structure and plan, like new bell curves.
That is amazing. So, boy, you really do have a list of things you can do with people and help them in developing their marketing and do that piece for them. I'm very impressed.
Well, Rick, I want you to know, first of all, I know we're about to wrap up. So let me just take a few seconds to get some plug-ins. One, I really appreciate you and your show. I appreciate the Lone Star Internet Radio. I appreciate the local Conroe Chamber of Commerce and the support we've gotten from them. Our office is at Abbey Suites. We have been able to help just so many small businesses there. It's a great community in that. But we have so many other new products and services and layers that are just absolutely community business changing coming down the line. So I hope that I've been a good guest, that you'll invite me back. We've got other things that we can talk about on other days, and I just can't wait to share them.
Well, that's wonderful, David. Let me ask you, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
Absolutely. The best way is to email david.foy, F-O-Y, at internetmobile solutions.com, or simply call me at either at the office 281-210-0142. Again, that's 281-210-0142, or they can call my cell, 936-203-4272, 936-203-4272.
Well, David, I can't thank you enough for being with us today. This has been a very interesting experience for me and hopefully for our audience. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us today. Next week, we have a special guest in the audience that will be joining us, and that'll be Trident Renovation. And when I say Trident Renovation, what I'm talking about is Waylon Franklin and some of the senior management team. So we're going to have multiple people here to visit with next week. Should be an interesting show. So we ask that you will check out our website at www.irlonestar.com for more information. And always remember that Lone Star Internet Radio is the community radio station for Montgomery County. So please stay and listen to a little bit more of our show and also some great country music this afternoon with Lone Star. See you next week, partners. Thank you for listening to the Weekly Business Hour. Our special business guests next week will be Ross and Diana, owners of the Minuteman Press. Check out the Lone Star website at www.irlonestar.com for more information. Always remember that Lone Star Internet Radio is Conroe and Montgomery County's community radio station, where the community comes to connect.
Hey everyone, this is Tina, your host from Retro Saturdays. I wanted to invite you to visit the Lone Star Studios here in downtown Conroe, Texas. We're all volunteers here, and we need your help in serving the Montgomery County area. Radio media is a fun field to be in. Lone Star Internet Radio serves Montgomery County with news, current events, local programming, and of course, music. If you are interested in volunteering and sharing your talents in media, go to irlonestar.com and let us hear from you. Lone Star Internet Radio, serving Montgomery County from the heart of downtown Conroe.